Alright, YouTube. Part 2 of this saga. Open up this garage door so we can get a little more light in here. Got the little one open, we need the big one open. And my baby's still outside. How long? Anyway, we got company today. We have Monroe here to keep us company today. I'm doggy sitting today. And she's such a lazy little pit bull. Oh, I'm so lazy. I'm so lazy unless you scratch me in the right spot. Unless you scratch me in the right spot. I'm not doing it right now. I'm ready. Oh, there she goes. There she goes. There she goes. Yeah. You love it, don't you, mama? So. Anyway, that's my company for the day. She's a lazy puppy. Unless I grab her treats, then she goes crazy. But, last night, my batteries died, so, you know, I was still pretty much ready to work. But, in short, I just decided to prep a few things to make it easier. One thing I noticed about this car that kind of bothered me a little bit was the exhaust bolts were loose. Like, they're really easy to turn. The shield itself wasn't very loose. It was actually, it felt like it was torqued down correctly. But, just a heads up, those two bolts under there, right there, and right there, that you gotta get out to make sure this process gets completed properly. Uh-oh. Somebody's coming to sleep on my feet. She loves my feet for some reason. She has a foot fetish. I don't know what her deal is. Huh. Oh, you like feet, don't you? Don't you? She likes feet. Anyway, I noticed that there was a lot of loose stuff in here. I thought I was, ooh, damn it, freaking headlights. I thought I was the first person to freaking, take apart anything heavy on this car. It doesn't look that way, because these were ridiculously loose. Well, this one was. This was the only tight one on here. But, you know, that's what holds the valve cover on. So, anyway, we're just going to get into it. I loosened up a good amount of this stuff last night because, you know, I wanted to film it, but I wanted to get it done. So, it's pretty easy. So, all I really did was, of course, take all those tubes off, disconnect all that crap. I'm pretty sure I already got that on film. I disconnected this PCV pipe. You do not have to pull this tube out. I don't know why people always do. Or people want to pull that tube out. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about that bolt. That's all on the valve cover. That's all breather stuff. So it's not even attached to anything under there. But 30mm socket. Toyota's a big fan of doing this. These are actually 30s too. Your axle nuts. But 30mm socket. They should be tight. If they're not tight and your valve cover is leaking, it's probably because these aren't tight. So, you know, try tightening these up before you go out and buy a new gasket. And, you know, just take the old one, grab some RTV, take the old one, clean it out, you know, clean up the mating surfaces, and then just swap it and see what happens. You know, see if it just put it back on, you know, like, see if it works, because I think that's probably why this thing had oil dripping all down the back of it. You can see some of it right there, actually. And I power washed and gunked this thing. But just grab all 4 of these rings. This thing was kind of stuck on here. It wasn't very bad. Later on I found out that, set them to the side for now. Later on I found out that there's little retainers. These are all retainers right here that hold the valve cover on. But generally speaking, just lift the valve cover up a little bit once you get it knocked loose, and they'll pop right up. And they're pretty easy to remove once you have them out of the recesses. Otherwise, they're really difficult to get out. I didn't go through that. I didn't even know they were there until after I mostly after I pretty much had it off. So, but those 4 off. Those 4 off. Oil on my hands. Actually, am the type. Oh hell, where'd the dog go? I am the type to get dirty, but for the most part, I don't like to. There she is. What are you doing? What are you doing, Poppy? You better not walk off. Put you on your lead. That's her lead. When she gets bigger, she'll rip that mirror right off. But anyway. Anyway. She's a lazy dog. She's really lazy. Huh. Sorry. They're just so cute. It's so cute. Why are you doing your tail? Why are you doing your tail at me? Oh, can't pet you too much. I got oil on my hands. Not a lot, just enough. Anyway, this pops right up, right off. Yeah, when you have two hands available, it's a lot easier. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. So pretty much you just lift this bad boy off. It's a lot easier when you're able to use your hands the way they're meant to. Looking at this thing, I see that they try to change the oil pretty decently on it. It's not as bad as I have seen, just to say that. You know, like I have seen worse than this. There's not a whole bunch of gunk deposits in there. So, you know, they changed the oil in this car. It shows too. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. Anyway, next I am gonna work on getting this assembly off. Just take your fingers and turn them off. No, I'm kidding. I think these are 14 or 12. They could be 13. Or they could be 15. They could be anything. Wow. This is a 13. And I'd say they're 14s. 14 millimeter nuts there. I don't know where my 14 is. I moved everything last night and now I'm paying for it today. Yeah, that's a 14 right there. Yeah, those are 14s. You pretty much unbolt this one and that one, and this whole thing will pretty much come right off. It's already got a bad bushing there, so if you got a good bushing there, it might be a little more difficult to deal with. But this is just real simple. All this over here is a 14. This bolt right here for the bolt that holds the alternator in place is also a 14, and the one that holds the front motor mount to the front of the block is also a 14. So this is the first step of the day. It's to get all that crap apart, and I'll be right back to show you guys what's going on with that. Alright YouTube, this part is how you get the alternator out. Usually you think that you have to take this off, take out this little 12 back here. Also, really all you have to do is take out that 14 and this 12, and the alternator will pop right out, because this is just anchoring it to the tensioner right here. It's real simple. Once you get in here, you'll see exactly what I mean. If you're remotely mechanically inclined. But that 14's already out. We're gonna pull this out and pull the alternator. Try to pull the alternator anyway. I'm just lifting up at the the pulley here and just wiggle it out. Yeah, she's not cooperating. Let's see. There we go. Just wiggle her out. And she's gonna fight, because this is her home. And you have to force her out of it. Sometimes a little bit of persuasion goes a long way. So just persuade her out. Just like that. Just took a screwdriver, put it in between the bracket and the alternator mounting point, and it came out just like that. So pretty simple. Now I am pointing the camera everywhere except for the car. I'm not sure if this is my good one, but I have this mount to take off right here. It looks like it's part of the cylinder head, like it's all on the cylinder head, but this cylinder head has to be machined, so it has to be bare. No cams, no lifters, nothing that's gonna fall out. So I'm pretty much completely stripping this down to valves and springs, and that's it. But for the most part, make life a little bit easier on yourself, go ahead and hit these up with some some penetrating oil, just to make your life easier. Because I mean, when you are fighting with stuff like that in tight spaces, not only does it make it easier and stop you from rounding off bolts, and those are 14s by the way, not only does it make it easier for you to stop to take the bolts out, it keeps you from hurting yourself. Because when you're in those tight spaces and you have to hold into the socket and there's sharp shit like that around and this out here, I mean, you can scrape the skin off your finger pretty easy, and it sucks. The whole rest of the time you're working in the car, it sucks. So make life easier on yourself. Just take care of that now. I mean, it's just preventative measures to make life a bit easier. Okay, so while we're waiting on that to seep in. One thing I forgot to mention is once you get this valve cover off, ease of access to the wiring harness and the ignition, not the ignition, the fuel injector connectors is ridiculous. I mean, look at that. They are right there. You know how much trouble I had to go through to get that out when I pulled the engine? I went through a lot of trouble to get that out when I pulled the engine. To say it the easy way. But, I mean, they're right there. It makes it easy for them to come out. You just push that little button, little tab, hold on. My fat finger's in the way. Little tab right there, and it'll pop right out. I went for the most difficult one first, unfortunately, but let's see how easy it is to take out. Push the tab down first, and I left it down. I just pushed the tab down, it popped up a little bit, and I pulled it off afterward. So let's see if it works for the rest of them. That's one, and here's two, three. Scheiße. Scheiße, come on. And 4. That's simple. Real easy to take care of. With that off too, I've noticed that I think I'm seeing some bolts here for the intake manifold. Oh, that's the fuel rail. Oh, I see the bolts for the fuel rail. So the fuel rail is going to get pulled first. Make life simple. I'm going to pull the fuel rail first, and then I'm going to pull the intake manifold. So fuel rail, injectors, intake manifold. Hopefully it's all goes off without a hitch. Yeah, I see the bolts. You can only see the silhouette, but that's it right there. Okay, just a heads up, really, for these bolts that hold the fuel rail in, they are 12mm bolts. You want to turn them to the left. The last thing you want to do is tighten that shit up. Stuff up. Trying to work on that. Been saying I'm trying to work on that for some time. I'm actually trying to work on it now, so yeah. Yeah, Shay. Yeah. Ah. And they're not super tight. That came off pretty easy, right? So, you know, break them loose. Move over to the next one because there has to be another one here. Oh yeah, great. Buried right under the wiring harness. There's another one buried under here. Probably not going to do that on camera. Unless I can sneak it in under there. Let's see. The wiring harness is actually supposed to be bolted up, but when I put this back together, there was no way I was doing that with the valve cover on. Now that I'm actually doing engine work, I can do it, so I'm going to have all of this apart. Also, when I take this off, when this head comes off, instead of doing the usual disconnect the exhaust, disconnect the intake manifold, I'm going to show you guys a trick. Way easier way to get this off without having to fight with the intake manifold, because that's really the hardest part to do. Now, you can't really do this all the time in every situation, but in this particular car, I've seen the back end of this pretty well, and I think it's going to be perfect for this car. So I'll show you guys that when it's time, but for right now, we're just going to work on getting the fuel rail off, and pretty soon we're going to start working on this timing cover, because that is going to be a pain in the ass. But aside, I think I can get this off without pulling the freaking intake manifold off. Wow, hard to say, hard to say. Yeah. So the fuel rail is unbolted. I need to get this wiring harness out. There's two connectors way back on the underside of the head, and this engine's slanted. I'm pretty sure you guys already know that. If you own this vehicle, you definitely know this. But there's two connectors back there I gotta get disconnected, but I'm not really too worried about that right now. To get this wiring harness out, you have to disconnect those two that are behind the head, and you have to go inside the engine bay. Well, not the engine bay, go inside the car where this kick pad is, and disconnect a few wires there to actually get the entire wiring harness out. So, badass. To remove, it's actually mine. To remove this kick panel here, it's pretty simple. There is literally one screw that holds this all together. I'm pretty sure you guys are probably thinking, oh god, I gotta go under the dashboard and take it out and this, that, and the other. No, it's one screw, so kudos for Toyota on that one. I can't really do it one-handed, but Your results may vary because you probably have a better screwdriver than I do, but this is pretty simple. You take out this one screw, and it just kind of leverages itself in there. I'll show you guys once I get the screw unscrewed, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this screwdriver's crap. The tip is all jacked up. Not sure if you guys can see that. Let's see if we try to focus. Ah, ooh, my ribs all twisted up. But anyway, the tip's all jacked up on that. That's a everyone screwdriver. So today we're gonna break out the big gun. This guy right here, he ratchets. Yeah. Well, it's not really a big gun. It just has a slightly better tip that was used to repair a fence, so it's kind of more to also. So let's see if this helps us out in this situation. It may not. This is probably something you're going to encounter yourself if you're a regular person like me. And this usually is a 1 minute job right here. It takes a lot longer. There we go. Yes, yes. In fact, it's so loose already that it's just turning out. But this is usually a 1 minute job. Honestly, it doesn't usually take this long to get this out, or to tossing that in the ashtray, or to get those pieces unplugged like I was telling you. Now there is only one screw in there. I just completely forgot which part comes out first. Oh, this has pins. This gray part has pins. So sometimes you got to be a little bit rough with stuff. Don't be too rough. Just be rough enough to get the job done. So she said, boom, there's all the pins. That one screw just holds it together, and this whole assembly pops right on out. Toss that in the back, and what you're left with is a whole bunch of shit that you have to unplug. I mean, stuff that you have to unplug. But that stuff makes it a hell of a lot easier to pull this wiring harness out, because this connects into that stuff that I just showed you guys, and it runs between the valve cover and the intake manifold. The valve cover on, it's still a pain to get it off, but now the valve cover off, this is it's gonna come right out. So I'm actually kind of happy to do this. So take this part out, so you kind of have a bearing of where you're at, where you're going. Just take this boot out. It's really easy to take out. It's just difficult because I'm filming. So get a little edge out. If push comes to shove, grab a screwdriver, which is what I'm probably gonna do. Oh, I'm pretty sure you guys noticed I gloved up. I usually don't, but it's pretty greasy in here. Even after blasting everything, it's still pretty greasy in here. So yeah, this ain't cooperating right now. Screwdriver time. Yeah, so that definitely took 2 hands to get out. I put one hand on this side, one hand on the opposite side, and I pushed down here with my index fingers and just pushed it in, popped it out. With that little lip out, the rest of this is cake. That easy, right there. All you have to do is get a little corner out, and it's simple. It just pops right on out. Yeah, thinking about taking a nap. No, not really. Chair's all the way back, feet go up here, and this looks a bit extreme, but trust me when I say it is necessary, because you have to limbo back in here and kind of get in this position to where you can see where that grommet is, so you're not unplugging stuff that you don't need to unplug. So this is everything that's plugged into that grommet right here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. It's kind of tight, but it's these two here, this white one, and this is the cable that comes in. Let's see if you guys can see that. Yeah, it's kind of zoomed in. I can't even get my head in the camera both in focus here, but I'm gonna try to point you guys in the right direction. Please forgive me. But this is the cable running in. How much time do I have? Okay, this is the cable running in. It's just a fat wiring harness. All you really have to do is look at that cable, what's attached to it. So these two white ones, this gray one, another one into the ECU up top, another one under it, and that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unplug these 5, and this whole thing will come right out. So I'm gonna turn this off right now because I'm already having a hard time just trying to film this. If you look at me, yeah, I'm completely buried in here. So I'll bring you guys back after I have it unplugged and show you guys what's up. Alright, got a phone call, so I had to stop for a bit. But that's out, plus the other 3 are out. There's only 4. Yeah, it's only 4. No, it's 5. There's one more up there. One more way back there. But there's a little tab on here like that. You push that in and pull the wires. Try gently pulling the wires. I'm not sure how else you're going to get it out, because with these, they have like a little notch in the bottom that you can grip onto. But with the other ones, you kind of just have to pull them out. They have a notch too, but it's not exactly accessible from where it's at. That's actually kind of difficult to get out, but once you get them out, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's done. And then you can go over to the inside and start pulling these out here. If you haven't noticed, I tore up my gloves just doing this. Well, I actually had to answer the phone and the gloves were pretty oily. But that's out. So now all I have to do is disconnect the other 2 on the back side of the head, and this whole wiring harness is ready to lift out. Okay, now with that out, the wiring harness out of here, kind of realizing that it's getting to the point to where, you know, I'm running out of, sorry, I was digging in my nose. Anyway, I'm kind of realizing that I'm getting to the point to where I'm going to have to start going underneath the car to do my underneath work, because on the head gasket you usually have top side work and bottom side work. But I've been doing mostly top side work right now. I mean, it's just the beginning of this, really. I guess we're still in the infancy of this project. But those 2 plugs over there in the back side of the cylinder head are pretty difficult to get to. What I'm thinking about doing to resolve the issue is leave it for backside work or bottom side work, because the bottom side work, I have to unplug those, I have to get this wiring harness all the way out, I got to get this fuel rail off, not bottom side, I got to get the other shit, you know, just disconnected over there. So I got bottom side work anyway, and just to pull that cylinder head off and get that intake manifold, there's a support that holds the intake manifold to the block. So when I get ready to do that, I'm gonna, you know, start on I'm gonna undo the harness, so that way I have minimal topside work to worry about, in short. So I mean, that way it's just get under there, do those few things, get back up here, do a few more things, and the cylinder head should come right off. But right now we're gonna focus our attention on the exhaust. It's pretty much done already. I soaked these down here. There's 3 bolts down here. One there, one there, one there, with penetrating fluid, penetrating oil. I would like to do it up here because it's so much easier. It's right there in my face, you know, like I don't have to worry about taking out the radiator, because the radiator blocks it. But for the most part, I've never touched these bolts, and that seam looks like this has never been broken apart before. So I might give it a whack, give it a few whacks, and see how it starts to turn out. If it starts to turn out ugly, I'm just gonna say screw it and go for the ones that I've already fought with, because I took this off when I did the transmission. So that's the plan. So we're gonna start on the exhaust. Okay, so the exhaust in this car is pretty simple. You have 14mm bolts, one there, one there, one there, one there, and there should be probably, well, those 2 here that I actually showed you guys earlier, and there should be one more probably over there somewhere, just by design. I'm pretty sure there's probably one more over there, but we're not going to worry about that one. This one you can't get to until you remove the alternator bracket. And look, I haven't touched this one yet, and it's that loose. So whoever put this on last kind of half-assed it. They really half-assed it. But you just take all these off. Then once all those are off, all these 14mm bolts, I'm going to do a search. I'm going to tell you guys where that last one is, because I don't see it. This heat shield doesn't come off unless you disconnect this other bolt that's on the back side of here. That's ridiculously difficult to get to. But that's pretty much it for removing these bolts. I haven't touched this one either. Let's see how easy. That one's already loose. I haven't even touched that one yet. That's insane. I don't know who put this together, but they didn't do a great job of it. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so I was incorrect in my assumption. Those are all the bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. get those 6 bolts out, and your exhaust is pretty much disconnected. This one's still kind of fused together pretty good, which is why it probably wasn't leaking. This is probably why the dude never thought to check it out when he did that whole deal. I have a breaker bar around here somewhere that I would like to use to break that seal. Here we go. Sorry for the mess. That's just how I work. No, I'm kidding. Usually I try to keep it a little bit neater than that, but gently pry it off. This is aluminum, so you don't want to do it too hard. But gently pry it off. You don't want to pry it off hard. You don't want to sit there and pretend like it's a cast iron freaking head, because it's not. Cast iron heads are almost non-existent unless you're in a diesel, so you just want to gently pry it just to break the seal, and show you how little I'm prying it. Like, you could just see like a little gap in there forming, and that's it. That's all you need, just to break the seal so it comes apart. Now we face the elephant in the room, which is this bit right here. I'm debating on whether I should start here or from there, because I know that's going to be a little bit easier to get off. But if I start from here, I have to take off another bracket. Isn't life just lovely? Either way, I think I'm going to try here first. If here doesn't work, if this spot right here doesn't work, I'm not even sure if that needs a gasket. I don't see a gasket there. Yeah, we're just going to go this route. If I have to pull the radiator, I'll just pull the radiator. Okay, so this is the setup. It's a 14 millimeter. This is to remove this little bracket here. You only really have to disconnect this one bolt. It's a 14 mil, and that one. You don't have to completely take it out. You can take it out like halfway, actually get the job done. But I'm using a breaker bar. So, breaker bar, boom. That simple. That's all you have to do to get that thing loose, because it should be on there pretty tight. So, breaker bar over there. Grab your 14 millimeter wrench. Start wrenching. So this other bolt that's buried in there, let's see if you guys can see it. No, not really. Nope, no way to see it. Let's see if I get a little bit darker. No. Well, there's the 14, that's the top half. There's another 14 millimeter bolt right here. That's the bottom half. And I have to rotate this way to get it out, and the bracket's obstructing it, plus the oil dipstick, or the dipstick, and a few other things. So, you know what? Instead of fighting with that now, I'm going to save it for bottom work. Stuff that I started on earlier that I didn't finish, that is top work, is this right here. I could do those 3. They're in there pretty good, so it's going to be a breaker bar time. I forgot where I put it. But also, that needs to come loose because your water pump's attached to it. Those are hard lines to your water pump. I think that's attached to the block. So take that out while you're at it. Just take all of those out and save the rest for bottom, because you don't want to be top, bottom, top, bottom. Do as much as you can on top, then do the bottom. Alright, I'll show you guys how to take these 3 out real quick. Breaker bar, 14 mil. And just knock those bad boys loose. Ah, flies. All 4 of them. Hey, where are you going? Sorry, it's the puppy. But break them loose, and voila. Now you can turn them by hand. So, we have a good portion of this done. Now we're going to work on the timing belt cover, finish up as much of the top work as possible, and then get this bad boy in the air. It's afternoon, sun's beaming in here, so it's actually not a bad time to be under the car, because it's not very hot under the car versus over it. Oh, anyway, these are 10 millimeter bolts for the timing belt cover. I'm not sure exactly how many of them there are, but I'm not going to remove it until after I time the crankshaft to 0, because this is a automatic. It's not a stick, so if you have the chance to time that correctly now with the timing belt cover still on there, do it now, because it's not going to go anywhere regardless of what you do. So I mean, do it now, get it out the way. Radiator removal is very simple. You loosen up this bolt. I already got it loose. I think it's a 12 millimeter bolt. Loosen that up. I mean, just enough to even flip it around. Flip it around, bolt it back on. I already did that side. And leave your bolts there so you don't have to look for them. There's several connectors on here. There's one at the very bottom for your water temperature sensor. I can't see it right now. And there's also 2 hoses, including the upper hose and lower hose for the cooling system. There's 2 hoses for the transmission that need to come apart too. And those are just regular pressure clamps that you get some pliers, clamp together, pop them off. They're actually pretty easy to get off. But that's it. That's really all that's holding this radiator in. After that, it just comes straight up and out, and it's out the way. So now the radiator out the way. Finally, a little bit of water leaking out of there. It was mostly water. I had the puppy in here. Didn't want coolant over the floor, but it's pretty much clear. So it is clear actually. These bolts under here are 14 mil bolts. You want to turn them to your right technically because they're facing the opposite direction. Okay, maybe it is to your left still. Okay, you want to turn it to your left technically. Well, I guess technically that's right. I don't know. I think it's actually still left. I forget. Either way. You want to turn it that way, the way I'm turning it right now to get it off. These weren't too hard to break off. I soaked them for an extended period of time with penetrating oil, so these came right off for me. Plus, I've recently taken these off within the last 6 months or so, so they haven't really had the time to fuse back like that, and they had penetrating oil all over them, so easy route. So exhaust should be off in 5 minutes or so. Okay, I'm not sure if this was intentional, but I was going to say this for the bottom. It's a bolt over there, buried in there. It's a little bit brighter now because the sun's moved. But I was going to say that for the bottom, but it's a 14 millimeter bolt for this little bracket that's kind of stopping me from getting to this last bolt on the exhaust. If you have a long extension like this, you could actually wiggle this under the transmission cooling lines, like so. And sneak that in there all the way to here. Now it's gonna take a while. This isn't magic, so I mean you gotta sneak it in there just right to get it on there. See? And start to ratchet that bad boy out of there. I'm not sure if Toyota did that by design, but I actually remember encountering this before, so yeah. It makes life a little bit easier. So hopefully that saves some of you guys hours of a headache. You know, go out and spend the 16 bucks for an extension. Alright, so those came out pretty easy. Problem I had was that exhaust. I have to remove a hanger down there to actually get it off. I don't feel like going through all that. Hangers are a pain to remove. I think they're a little bit easier in this car, but I don't even have this thing up in the air yet. And I want to see if I can get this out from up top. So these are 12s all around here. As you can see, I sprayed it with a little bit of penetrating oil, and I have my breaker bar set up with an extension and a 12, and this one and this one is snapped loose pretty good. I still have one more on the back side right there. Can't really see it, but it's right there. And I have one more here. If there's anything else on here, I can't. Oh shit, there's one on the very back buried under everything that I will not be able to get to. So you know what, we may have to abandon ship.